What's up? It's WrestleZone. I really missed the theme music. If you're with us on the podcast side of things, thank you so much for joining us. A lot of cool stuff in the feed if you haven't checked it out, including interviews with Aiding English, Matt Ronald from 205 Live SmackDown fame. We also spoke recently with Chris Jericho, Alex Hammerstone of MLW, one of my favorite names in wrestling. Lisa Marie Varon, you may know her as Victoria. So a lot of exclusive interviews in the podcast feed. You can also check those out on Facebook Watch or on YouTube. So give it a look. Look for that red WZ logo looking like the Wolfpack in 1996. I am Kevin Kelm from the news desk of WrestleZone, a man who I enjoy, who's also bald and beautiful. All right. Also bald and beautiful. All right. And has an equally phonetic name as my own. He has a beautiful floral shirt on today. From the city of Three Rivers, Pittsburgh, PA, Dominic D'Angelo. Dominic, on a Tuesday. We have some speculative fun wrestling things to talk about today. We'll touch on The Undertaker, his recent episode on Sunday. I didn't get to touch on this. We had Raw. We had, of course, we will talk about the speaking out news that is developing on social media by the day, and we are trying to cover it as accurately and as informatively and as sensitively as we possibly can. But we will talk about The Undertaker and whether or not he is truly done in the WWE. This is something he said in the most recent episode of the Last Ride series on WWE Network. If you're with us live, don't forget to share the link, throw your comments in the chat, and they will even appear on the show. So for you podcast listeners, you're like, who are they talking to? They bring up these names. You know, you guys are still included. You can hit us up with your questions at WrestleZone.com on Twitter. All right, so Dominic, let's get into it. Hashtag Speaking Out is now in... feels like day 4 or 5. This started kind of around Wednesday of last week and developed and rolled from there. It is certainly a tidal wave of social change and demanded justice in the world of wrestling. It has affected almost every major promotion, and some WWE has a few. AEW has 2 significant names, a lot more names on the independent level, several names in WWE with NXT UK as well. So it is not a small thing. It is still something that is still very active at the moment. We covered in our most recent episode for you guys that are downloading our show from yesterday. Impact Wrestling has fired Joey Ryan and Dave Christ, and they have suspended Michael Elgin and are looking into a situation with him. Now, the Elgin situation has been known for quite some time. It wasn't so much that he was accused of sexual misconduct, as most of the people in the speaking out movement have been. It has been varying levels of degree, so we will be sensitive in that regard. Some people accused of much worse things. Some people accused of more emotional abuse. Some people accused of flat-out sexual assault, which is disgusting and evil. So as we kind of cover the story, it doesn't seem like this is letting up.
No, it doesn't. And, people have been coming out with different names here and there on all different levels, as you spoke of. And it's hurtful and heartbreaking to see that, a lot of these talents, female and male, have been affected so badly with all this. And, but, just like almost like Black Lives Matter, you hope that, something blooms positive from it all, and like it's like getting out the rot, so to speak, in a lot of ways. Who knows how long this will go on? I'm sure it takes a lot of talents, a certain amount of. Obviously, it takes a lot of courage to do for them, and they should be proud of themselves to be able to do that. But it's going to come at certain different points in time for all these talents as they deal with this emotionally. It's got to be hard to do. As a man that's never experienced anything like that, I can't even imagine. So, yeah, and that's
the other thing for us. It's like, oh, this is so hard to read, and this is such a sad story to cover, and that has been our discussions privately off air with everyone at WrestleZone. We are in communication with each other nearly 24/7. These are good friends of mine that I work with that I've never seen. I think, Dominic, you are one of maybe 2 people I've actually been in a room with at WrestleZone. But I know everyone's deal. Oh, so and so's got a dog. We're a close knit group of guys, and I believe we run in a good stock of people of good moral character. It is depressing for us to cover, but then you think the reality of it is this is a life-alteringly bad and painful experience that maybe changes these people forever. There's part of them that doesn't get to come back from that. And I know this isn't like, hey, talk about wrestling and talk about this and why are we dealing with this. I understand that. I understand that there's this natural, like, I don't want to hear about it. It's bad.
Yeah,
It's everything's so depressing. And we're going through COVID, and that is still very much a specter that haunts over everything in our lives. But I think we saw socially, that fell. Entertainers were called out, and this is something that's been going on for years. Social media has kind of changed the world in that way. There is a good side to this, and I think hopefully this will change the way that that wrestlers are introduced to the industry in terms of being trainees, whether they be men or women. One thing I could agree with, that I think there has to be more regulations in terms of how old you are to be entered into the wrestling business and be training around it. That is something we're kind of seeing is there's people that were either groomed or approached and they weren't of a legal age and they were involved with the wrestling business and they weren't exactly wrestlers, but they're certainly around it in a supporting role, whether it be setting up the ring or selling merchandise. And those are people you need in wrestling. I work in comedy. We need people to help us run the door and do the seats, and it helps you kind of all those things you would describe as tedious. They get in, people help you out. They want to have a time on stage. They help you with that. Same thing in comedy, and comedy is now having the same issue. So these structures of power are really developed to empower people, not abuse that. So I think that has to be looked at. And part of that is complete restructuring how you change people. Now, the problem we're going to see from that is that going to be regulation. Are we going to go back to the era of athletic commissions, kind of having, or do you have to have a permit to be a professional wrestling teacher? Do you have to have a school? Do you have to be registered with that school? Like, we're now going to go into that world of, are you going to have to be permitted like a trade school to start training people in professional wrestling? That is a discussion I haven't seen, but I could see being introduced soon.
As far as like that goes, I'd like to see some sort of form or fashion of that, whether it's on the onus of the trainer to do a lot of that stuff to implement. Hey, I cannot have a certain, age or certain, there's certain regulations I want to follow. Here's this sheet of paper. I want to make sure that you're safe and that I'm safe from all this stuff that goes on, because I think there needs to be some sort of implementation of that where it's like, oh no,
and I'm not saying there isn't schools that
don't. Oh no, yeah, and no, by all means, I'm sure there is, but like I certainly think it needs to become some sort of structured thing across the board in whatever way that's possible, So yeah, and Ken, you mentioned too that this is a lot of this is this is something that's happening in pro wrestling. But I was thinking about this too, is like almost a speaking out thing did not start because of pro wrestling. Like, it started, David Starr was one of the first ones that we talked about and that really got out there. But before all that, it was the comedian, Chris D'Elia, or how you ever say it. Yeah,
it is a name because it has that hyphen in the middle. People always kind of worry about how to say it.
So,
Chris D'Elia.
Like, that was kind of how I think a lot of the gears started turning towards the speaking out too. He got outed, and then I think that encouraged a lot of other talent to be like, okay, hey, look, this is what's going on here. Like, somebody else spoke out about him. Here's this, I don't think it's even confined to just entertainment. It's confined across society. It's a societal thing, I think, in a lot of ways, where this is something that we always deal with, I'm sure, and we just don't hear about. Like, women have to deal with a lot of this stuff that gets swept under the rug, and it's unfortunate and sad.
Yeah, and I'm asked, because obviously we're live, and you guys are kind of looking for the breaking news. If they're streaming, they must be talking about something live. There are some things that have developed. Some of these stories we haven't reported at WrestleZone. Obviously, they're on social media, and we kind of follow up with them on sources. And it isn't that we don't take them as valid, but there are things kind of coming up that it doesn't matter the names, because some of them we can't validate at the time. If something comes up and it seems fairly suspect as to whether or not it's true, and that is unfortunate. You're looking there at a hashtag, and that is giving a sense of justice to the things you're reading, and you've used this phrase, very, very powerful phrase, truth to power, right?
Yes.
And so you see that hashtag speaking out, you think, okay, someone did something bad, they're being called out for it, and hopefully justice will find them, right? and this is being done through social media. The problem in this is any movement. This is any movement now that is social media based. Is with it, if it keeps going, it will roll over and things will kind of get into that snowball that you think of like, wait, this is serious. Joey Ryan is a monster. I don't need to ever watch him wrestle again. I don't need to pay for a t-shirt for him again. Sammy Guevara, who made a joke using the word rape about Sasha Banks and mentioning how attractive it was when he saw, like, that guy will pay a price. I don't think that should end his career, but he will pay a significant price for it that may affect his career from being as big as he could be, because people will remember you said that stupid thing, and I won't forget that, right? And I think those are of the same world, but I don't think they're the same thing. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. It can be, because some people say, oh, they're one and the same. If you say that, then you're appropriating those things. I think you can separate them, and also there's a difference. What we're now seeing is people who've dated wrestlers who are not accusing them of any specific physical abuse, but now saying this person I think was a bad partner. I think they're abusive to me emotionally. I think they did these things that you would definitely say, like, that is not okay. But we're at a point where we're waiting to validate those things. Just like if somebody says it with Joey Ryan, it got to the point where it's like, this is something we're going to have to keep adding to the story. Like, so there was more than enough information out there. And it becomes harder and harder when all of it's happening so fast. Am I wrong? Like, the information is coming at us so fast.
And here's the thing too. Social media is so black and white in a lot of ways. So if you say something and something gets like thrown out there, whether it's like, the Sammy Guevara thing or the Joey Ryan thing, it's like it gets, like you said, it's in the same world. It has that same, but it's not like there's a definite difference between those two, where it's just like a lot. But the mentality on social media is going to be like, it's this and it's this. And we all know that the world is not like that. And that's the tough thing, to try to gauge. And Kev, like, let's be clear too. Like, there's plenty of times that a lot of the times a lot of people will be like, hey, why aren't you reporting about this? Or why aren't you talking about this one? Or
because I just saw it over here.
Yeah, I just saw it here. Why aren't you guys talking about this? Like, how is this like journalism, stuff like that? But like, rest assured, like, we're talking about this. Like, each one we find, we share in chat and stuff like that. But there's a certain level of us being like, okay, but there's not enough information that we can get this out there and make sure that it's legitimate for people to read. And because, like, this is where you get your source of news, like WrestleZone or wherever you may go to is where you get your source of news. So.
I use the word speculation, and let's speak on this after we kind of lay out the story. Because I always want you guys to know, okay, we've reported it. Now is what we think, and here's how we feel about these things. So I think that's important too.
And it certainly doesn't invalidate what gets put out there.
Be empathetic. Be empathetic to people.
It's just a matter of
to be. Yeah. There's no reason to that. We have people texting in here, bringing up different things. Sammy Guevara, of course, apologizing for that story. Suspended by AEW. His status being evaluated after the end of that suspension. He'll have to undergo counseling, and he will be suspended without pay. His pay will then go to a women's shelter in Jacksonville. AEW announcing that. So other stories here, questions from people live. A lot of people with different comments on this here. I want to bring this question up from Stephen Chambers. Says, do you see WWE possibly canceling NXT UK despite accusations against, it's not, he says, most of the roster? To be clear, there's numerous people on the NXT UK roster who've been accused of these things. Progress Wrestling, which is partnered with WWE, has made an entire shift of talent that they have managing there. And they have been outright about saying, here are the changes we feel we're making. And they were already in a tough spot with COVID and different things like that. NXT UK, I think, of the branches of WWE, feels like it's the worst hit by everything. And WWE has put out statements. They're looking into different things. You have several guys there. I believe last time I checked, it was 5 different talents were accused of different things, varying levels of degrees. Jordan Devlin, the NXT Cruiserweight champion, who couldn't travel. That's why they crowned a new tournament and did all that stuff. He's stuck in Ireland. That was accused, and he denied that. Other wrestlers haven't said things. Trent Seven and NXT has said that I don't believe in this. I will defend myself. I will have this. So the people who don't say anything, you then have to say, like, the quieter you are about this, the more suspect that becomes. I think that's a fair assumption. But it's odd. I think NXT is NXT UK is in a very, very tough spot already. And then on top of this, I don't know. I mean, if this is something to cancel an entire division of WWE that they have put a lot of time and effort into over a very long period of time, them developing those branches of NXT outside of the United States and North America has been a very, very long-term program. But as we've seen with COVID-19, WWE's kind of reeled in their resources and have really focused those on Orlando and have really tried to streamline things. If we get back to a time when they start to tour again and life is safe to do that, I think that's more of a question then. I would say NXT UK is on pause right now because of coronavirus more than this. But this situation happening while that is happening on, I think gives WWE even more time to kind of approach things and say, like, all right, here are all the issues we have with you guys. And certainly I think that's happening. Do not think that a company that big with that many resources legally and their connections to health and trainers, mental, whatever you want to go into, and them saying, all right, well, here is someone, here's this. Like, they're going to have to approach these all legally because they're such a big company. And other people are saying, how come these people aren't fired already? The problem you guys got to think about here too, about this is a lot of these haven't been brought in court. No, so when it's just on social media, it's just on social media. So that doesn't invalidate anything. But the problem then is, well, how can we know if this really happened? Jack Gallagher, he was released within less than 24 hours because there was information and we reported it that validated what he was accused of. Okay. And then they acted and then he was fired.
Right.
And so with the other talent, you're waiting for other shoes to drop. The first one dropped. What's the other one? The other one is this now going to a legal recourse? Is this now something where we have to let somebody go? So I don't, it's hard because AEW is in the same spot as well. I think any of these companies are. It puts them in a very tough spot. Bar Wrestling, Joey Ryan's promotion is done. The people that wrestle for that promotion do not have a promotion to wrestle for on the other side of coronavirus. And the venue they worked with in California called them off on these
and
things.
The staff that was put together for that too.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's those are people, I don't want to call them victims in this, but indirectly, those are people that are affected by this. The people that work with these people and do business with them are affected as well. So it's a very, very confusing situation. So, and I appreciate people watching the show and following, and also I appreciate people's empathy here. It is very easy. And I've seen some awful comments and responses to things. The word gold digging has been thrown out. And I'm just like, no, that's a whole other issue.
You don't want to, at this point in time, you should not.
Yeah.
That's
and
putting a lot of stuff way ahead before you even know anything.
Have you ever heard someone say something so loudly that they believe so much, but 100% is bullshit? like one of those. And I appreciate, especially the core listeners of the show and the core supporters of WrestleZone. There's going to be people in the comments. We're going to have them at our website too. You're going to have them everywhere. They're going to say, dumb stuff.
Dumb stuff.
Yeah. So I do want to get into the topic here. I teased it here a few minutes ago on the show about the Undertaker. One of the best things WWE's done outside of the recent match with Edge and Orton, some really fun stuff in NXT, has been the Last Ride series. This has gotten a lot of fairly positive response from wrestling fans and even sports fans, as the Undertaker has really pulled back the curtain with this series. He's a guy who's done some interviews and things here and there, but really, his name is Mark Calaway just because you could find out on Wikipedia. You don't know Mark Calaway. And the most recent years, especially as the Undertaker has made it clear, he's in the final stages of his career. Is every match going to be his last match? That's the whole series, right? He did a lot more media, and you kind of got the idea that, this could be the final years of the Undertaker. We've been asking ourselves that now for like what, 10 or 15 years now. But here he is in his mid-50s. Most recent match he had, of course, was the Boneyard match, a cinematic match filmed over hours and hours and hours. It made him look like $1 million, and it looked really, really cool. It was with AJ Styles. He was successful. He buried him in the ground. In the ground, he was buried. But I thought it was definitely something where if that's the way you want to go out, that's the way to go out. And you're watching the series, and he kind of says, I don't have a desire to get back in the ring. And that's a weird thing because you've been watching the series now for 2 months. And all he's talking about is like, I didn't like that match. I know I need to end on a strong note. What do you think? Is The Undertaker truly done in WWE?
If I had to wager a guess, I would say no, he's not. And here's why. Well, now, but there was some valid points that could be made in regards to the opposite side of things. Is the fact that he mentioned too that didn't his brother pass away, and wasn't there something else with Michelle McCool, one of Michelle McCool's family members too, that kind of gave him a little bit of pause?
There were issues. There were issues in one episode. They didn't say exactly what it was.
Yeah,
but there was a family issue with him and Michelle. He addressed during one of the matches in Saudi Arabia that he wasn't happy with, specifically the tag team match where Triple H got hurt. The whole match went off the rails. The tag team match, Generation X versus Brothers of Destruction, big fun match on paper. Sounds exciting, right? But that was another match in Saudi Arabia where people were like, "Oh, big budget match in Saudi Arabia," and it didn't do well. Like the players in the match knew it didn't do well. So it was definitely something there.
So that's something that could kind of change the tone or your mindset of things, of almost a wake-up call in a lot of ways, maybe. But I feel like a lot, while the Boneyard match was awesome, and I loved it, and I'm not super big into the cinematic matches. I thought it was great, the best one they've done yet, and so far still. And but I almost feel like Taker would want to close it out in a ring, a physical ring. And maybe in front of a crowd,
in front of a crowd. And I was sort of mentioning this on our most recent episode, and I alluded into it, and I just want to dig into it. Is the Undertaker that great ace when the green light is go? You and I have had this. I think everyone with blood and a heartbeat over the last 3 months have had this. Is what are you gonna do when you can go out and be around people? There's a lot of people going to patios and restaurants and stuff like that. Maybe even some people going to wrestling shows, but it's not the same. Wrestling fans not being at shows, it's not the same. It's wrestling light, right? We've seen the ratings go down, trends go down. Even us at WrestleZone, we've been hit. There's less people following you. So there is this sense of like, I'll come back to it when there's fans there. I don't want to watch it if there isn't fans. There's plenty of fans like that. And I think if you want to get those casuals to say, better come back because the Undertaker's having his last match this year. And I think this next one, to me, you say it. It's there. Done. This is it. You'll see him again. This is the last time he's going to come and have a match. And Undertaker can come out and do, a choke slam every year if he wants to. But if you want to get something out of it, here's the last match. I'm fantasy booking. You win the Royal Rumble. I don't want a title shot. I don't want the Universal belt. I don't want the WWE Championship. I want the Undertaker, and I want your career. If I'm doing that, and you could really make somebody there, you can get that same. For me, idea. That's my take. And you do it at WrestleMania.
And here's what you do. You have the bastard lose too. You have Taker win. He beats whoever he takes. And
yes,
because that person will survive.
Yeah,
that person will survive.
God, of course. You're having a match with the Undertaker at WrestleMania. You're fine. Anybody who thought
you wrestled Undertaker in his last freaking match. So
AJ Styles should have beat the Undertaker in the Boneyard match. I heard that he should have beat him in the match. He's so old. I was like, they literally put him in a grave. You know what happened to AJ Styles 2 months after the grave thing happened? he had one of the best matches that SmackDown has had on television in years. So, like, what are you getting at? He got out of the grave. His hand was out of the grave.
You can look at it this way, too. The whole last Ride series, I mean, it's obviously it doesn't reach out to a wider base as a WrestleMania audience does. But, like, you kind of look at it, if you watched the last Ride and you were engaged by that, it almost kind of hits, not to a high level, but it kind of hits almost a little bit of a reset button or a refresh button for The Undertaker and the intrigue of him wrestling at WrestleMania again.
Yes.
Because, like, they tease, hey, he might not be back.
And also, but I mean, also the thing about WrestleMania is it is the biggest show of the year. It is a show that has a lot of things on it for the casual fan that comes in and out. And you know this, the big quarter of business for wrestling in general is built off WWE, and it's a trickle down. It's Reaganomics, man. It trickles down from them, right? They're still number one, right? It goes January, late end of the year, okay, where football's going into the playoff season. And then when we know football's done, boom, we're into WWE WrestleMania right before baseball starts, right? Yeah. And it's always been that quarter from the winter into the spring is the hot time. And you still need to have those things that hardcore fans that come in and out that are casual, especially when there's so many more distractions now, will say this. And, you know, you got still casual fans that come in and be like, I've always watched, never seen The Undertaker, you know, never seen him, and he's still an attraction that people would pay to see because how many more times you get to see him. On the series, they had him go to Madison Square Garden twice, and every time he goes, I don't know if this is the last time I'm going to do this. Even if it's just him coming out and being there, and he's taking pictures of Elvis on the wall with a picture next to his, and he's like, oh, that's so cool, and my picture's on the wall. And then, yeah, you're a little bit of a mark for yourself, but I think he's in this different space the past few years. Yeah. Other people want to see Sting versus Undertaker. I just don't know if that match is going to happen. We got Carl Dennett texting in about this. Every time we bring up the Undertaker, is he going to have one more match? Everyone asks, they want the Sting Undertaker match. It's never gonna happen. It's never going to happen, right?
Well, that's his Styles versus Taker. That's his Styles versus Taker that Carl does.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like Styles versus Taker. We have a couple Stings versus him.
Stings versus Taker. It's like, I mean, I think before I said, I did say, so I'm contradicting myself. I did say before a Sting versus Taker match would be great, but in cinematic fashion too, and it still could be, but I wouldn't want that to be Taker's last match if he were to have one. I just wouldn't.
Yeah, and then it becomes who gets that match. Exactly. You know,
and what's the point of having that match? And that
I think that's the whole story in itself is who gets to do that.
Yeah,
like who gets to have that shot. Because to me, that's like saying you get a chance of breaking the streak. You get to end them.
Yeah,
you get to end the unendable. You know, there's something fun to that. Tawab Ahmed saying he wants to see the Fiend versus the Undertaker. Yeah, the Fiend is an otherworldly character. It's interesting with the Fiend how they've kind of reeled back the Fiend a little bit and gone back to more of the Bray Wyatt side of things here for him. Other people chiming in, they want to see a Team Sting versus Team Taker match. But I don't know about that one. But certainly, you know, Undertaker looked good when they put him in that tag team match at Extreme Rules just about a year ago now. That was a really, really great match where he tag teamed with Roman Reigns against Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre. Very underrated. If you go back and watch that the crowd reactions on that in Philadelphia are huge. I watched that maybe like a week or two ago. I knew it was going to be on the last ride. I was like, I want to know what this is like again. And it was like one of those, you just watch great matches with the big reactions. And you're like, that's what that's like. Oh, that's what a crowd is supposed to sound like at a show. Tomorrow night is Wednesday night. That is the hot wrestling night. And things have gotten fairly close between WWE, NXT, and AEW in the ratings. We're now within the same 100,000 range. We even had in one segment NXT last week, we saw people get into this. This kind of sparked the whole Sammy Guevara thing to some degree, people digging after him because those Sasha Banks Bayley fans they have teeth. They have teeth, and they will go find stuff. And they found something that was worth finding on Sammy Guevara. But it started off this kind of playful argument. I do think the wrestlers have fun with this. They know this is a fun thing to play around with online. And Jericho enjoys this stuff too. Where they talked about who had a higher rated segment, the Les Sex Gods, Jericho and Guevara tagging, or Sasha Banks and and Bailey, who were in the tag team. They had a tag team title match in the main event. The Sasha Banks Bailey match had about 86,000 more viewers. Overall, AEW won the night. Their total viewership was stronger. But the numbers are getting fairly close here. But Fyter Fest is a strong build here. They've built up some things here. Tell me about Fyter Fest. They're kind of going with what Impact is doing the past years, where, hey, we're building up these matches. You think we're going to do this on pay-per-view. But actually, we're going to do this on TV. I think this is a clever move, especially for the number 2 company in the country coming up here. This will be the last episode of Dynamite before they go into Fyter Fest episodes, which will be the first week of July and the next week of July.
The next week, yeah. I think it's a clever move to do over the course of 2 weeks, kind of make it a little bit of a showcase, like, oh, hey, what's going to happen on the next episode of Fyter Fest, so to speak. But yeah, I think, it's obviously, it's not like a huge headline show that has a huge, big marquee name matches, but there's a lot of good, intriguing stuff going on there. We're going to get to see Cage versus Moxley, and the tag team titles being defended with the Best Friends and Hangman and all that. Plus, you get all the other intrigue stuff that Cody defending his belt against Jake Hager. So it's like all the titles are going to be on the line. So it's like there's intrigue going there. And I think to make the go home particularly special or important, they'll have to like make those stakes as high as they possibly can and kind of just build, hey, these titles mean something and this is why. So AEW's, I don't know, the card for this coming week looks pretty decent and has some intriguing stuff, but it's not like knock your socks off powerful either. So I think a lot of it's going to be in the execution of how they do it to kind of get those fans enticed and ready for AEW Fyter Fest.
And there's a different challenge in that sometimes, because there's certainly some things they could do that would be super exciting right now that fans want, that are long payoffs. You know, like the Hangman, Adam Page, Kenny Omega, are they or now they not going to get along, but their tag team champion storyline, that really hasn't been like stoked. We know it's there. Why is Cody mentioning the Four Horsemen so much? Why is he doing that? Are they going to do something there? The FTR, they're in AEW. We knew it was going to happen. Are they going to have this dream match with the Bucks? There's a lot of big things they've been building up to that aren't on Fyter Fest. Do you think we're just kind of holding those things out for All Out? Because AEW loves a good long build to something.
And you know what? Yeah, that's like, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that too, because I feel somebody we haven't really seen a whole lot of on Dynamite is like Lance Archer, like him being in an action and like he's been on Dark a lot of the time. So
especially since Double or Nothing, we haven't seen much of him.
Yeah, but you see him sitting in the crowd with Jake and all that stuff. And an argument could be made that hey, we should kind of see him a little bit more too. But you know, there's nothing wrong with pacing out a little bit of the story, and because I think WWE has trained a lot of us to kind of be like, okay, this is what happens. Boom, they're addressing this right now. Hey, there's tension in the ranks of this faction. Let's get right to it. What's going to happen? Well, let's build it off. Like there's times where AEW is just like, all right, we'll address it now, or we won't. It's just not going to, it's a matter of pacing is, I think, so important. And I think it helps AEW stand out further as a brand and as an alternative to
it's such an underrated part of storytelling on an episodic TV show in general, especially if you just like TV shows. Like I know a lot of people that watch the DC superhero shows on the CW, right? When those shows are paced out well, they're really good. Like they're very good, fun episodic TV. Speaking about the situation at AEW, we mentioned that Sammy Guevara is suspended. Now he was kind of actively involved in things. He was in the main event last week on television. Scott George asking, who is Matt Hardy going to face now that Sammy Guevara is gone? I know you know the answer to this.
Yes, I did. I can't remember what it is though. They announced the name.
I think he's facing one half Pride and Powerful, correct?
Santana. That's it. Yeah. And that's a good match. Yeah. I very much enjoy. One of my favorite aspects of that too is getting to see those guys in singles matches because, both of them have their own kind of unique personality. But Santana especially really stands out as like an individual and stuff like that. And when they did his singles match at one time, I can't remember who he faced. Maybe it was Cody. No, I think it was Mox. They kind of almost positioned him in a babyface kind of role where you're almost kind of rooting for him. And but now, you have him up against somebody like Matt Hardy. He'll get to showcase a little bit more of his heelish persona plus who he is. I think it's an awesome opportunity for Santana to kind of go up against a seasoned vet like Matt Hardy, and they'll be able to address Sammy Guevara later on. So it'll be, I think it's an awesome substitute, an awesome fill-in.
Can I speak on this Matt Hardy thing?
Yes.
Just sounding off. Matt Hardy's a really talented guy, but there is this thing in AEW, and I say he's a talented guy because obviously I was saying something nice, I'm going to say something bad. It's a very, very talented guy. It's entertaining, but it's only entertaining to a point. To the point where it's just like, you're a huge star coming into AEW. This is he was just featured on WWE television and like a critical angle to build up to a WrestleMania match. Like that his send off on WWE into AEW was like, hey, here's chef's kiss from WWE. Like, we understand you're leaving and we know you're likely going there. But hey, we still like you. We're going to do this cool angle with you. People say, oh, they beat the crap out of him and sent him away. No, that he was on television for half an hour. He was sent off in a big way and came into AEW in this big thing. Now, mind you, they wanted to have the big blood and guts match and do all these different things. But he's settling into this lane that seems like it's very, very fun lane for him to be in, right? Of doing the multiverse and doing different characters and doing all these different things. Does this reek of middle card to you? Because to me, it does. It's like, this guy could do a lot of fun, exciting things. I'm not saying he isn't doing them, but it just feels like there's a ceiling on this. Like, there's a ceiling on doing a different character every week until we get the one that we know is the build marquee. All right, this is broken Matt. This is woken Matt. We're getting this guy going after this guy. Big main event. The thing about it that never says the thing I want to hear is main event. I don't think he went to AEW just to be a top near mid-card guy. I think there was a hope that he could go there and have a big main event feud with somebody. And that was the one thing that I'm just like, I'm waiting to see. But I understand under the coronavirus, things are different. The people they can have there, are they taping their shows week to week? I believe they are for sometimes. Are they doing the stagger ones where one's live, one's taped? So there's all these different things that are very, very challenging situations. Also, AEW probably wants to focus on younger talent too. I mean, Brian Cage getting taken on Moxley next week. But what do you think of Matt Hardy so far in AEW?
I think he got thrown a bit, like we all did. Got thrown a little bit of a curveball with the pandemic and stuff like that. And because like the Matt Hardy, broken Matt Hardy, really a lot of his intrigue too came from the crowd, chanting delete and all that stuff. So he didn't necessarily have that kind of going in there. So I think there was a bit of an audible call, but this is also a character, the multi-faceted, or what's the name for it?
Multivarious. It's a hard thing. Multiverse. And you'll come to know that I'm awful. I'm a journalist, but sometimes I don't speak so smart. Words are hard.
Words are real hard for me sometimes. But I think I'm kind of with you, Kev, in regards to these levels and different personalities. Kind of, there's a ceiling to it. There's certainly a ceiling to it. But what we see from Matt Hardy, and I think was the appropriate direction for him to take away from the broken Matt Hardy, because there was only so much you could do with that too. And so even right now, even though he's positioned as all these, I bet you that we're at one point going to see Matt Hardy take a turn for one of these characters, or maybe he'll find a new character that he can just go off on, and that'll set up for a top of the card kind of thing right now. Right now, I do agree with you. It's kind of like has the ceiling of mid-card, upper mid-card level. But yeah, I can imagine Matt with his creativity and his ability to kind of tweak things and make things different. He can definitely make a moment where he's back at the top of the card again.
They certainly have some stiff competition from what NXT is putting up here with this multi-person situation building up over 2 weeks to see who could be a possible double champion in NXT. Yeah. Touching on that, but more importantly, I want to bring in this. Let's get your questions in there. We've been talking at you, but I want you to talk in with us if you watch live. And on the podcast side of things, we try to do the most interactive show where you'll hear fans ask questions that you would want to hear. If you're just listening in your ears, hopefully you're doing it on Apple Podcasts. If you're doing it on on the Spotify. We're now on there. I know there's a bunch of new albums that dropped. People are listening to. I'm listening to the new Lamb of God metal album. Absolutely love it. Really great. Their drummer is absolutely fantastic. If you're a fan of metal, I suggest it. But why don't you slide right over there? You see a WZ logo. You see that in the corner. That's where we're at. We're also on Facebook Watch and YouTube. So a lot of people following the show. I know some of the news is bad, but we're still trying to do fun, fan-oriented conversation. So whatever questions you got, fire them off. Someone asking, hey, Kev, what is your opinion of Dolph Ziggler? We covered this on last night's Raw post show. Do you want to get into this? Dolph Ziggler is back in the main event, and he will take on Drew McIntyre, his former tag team partner, for the WWE Championship, the upcoming Extreme Rules pay-per-view. No stipulation added to that, as that's the common thing with the middle of the summer pay-per-view. They throw some stips on there to shake it up. Drew is walking the walk as a champion right now. We can't really tell if he's a drawing champion because obviously no one's running shows, but he's carrying himself well in these segments. Dolph is a true journeyman in WWE, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think he's one of those guys that could, if behaves correctly and doesn't get in trouble, is always going to have the capability of being someone you could go to at any show and say, we need just a great match, and he can have that. And WWE has a lot of guys like that. But he also can do a lot of dynamic things in terms of promos and changing his character. He's one of those guys that has gone back from babyface to heel many, many times, but has been able to do it. But there is that sense of he's never going to be a top tier talent. He's always going to be seen as a gatekeeper guy. Is this another situation where here we're going to give Drew another challenging opponent, but he's going to meet the challenge? What do you think of this? It's with the thing was a challenge with Lashley was the same thing. We always knew Lashley was a talented star, but it wasn't was he really a superstar? And then he gave Drew a run there. Besides, they did the distraction angle. That was a match where you thought, like, there were a couple moments where we're like, oh, okay, Bobby Lashley going to get this belt off him. What do you think of Dolph challenging Drew for the title?
Dolph, over the past however years, like 6 or so, when like there was that moment, like when he won Survivor Series and Sting showed up, he was the guy. I think that was his really big opportunity. Not that he blew an opportunity. I think WWE more so blew an opportunity for him. But coming into this now, Dolph has that. It's just that vibe of him. But I honestly think the catch and the hook to this one is the fact that they were former tag team partners, and I think these two can really build a good program with one another. And I don't think having Dolph in this program is the purpose of it is to put Dolph at the top of the card again. I feel more so it's furthering Drew as having his journey as a world champion. I think that's what Dolph is there for, and I think you just have a straight up one-on-one match with him at SummerSlam, or with him and Dolph. I mean, him and Drew at SummerSlam. That's all you need. That's really all you need for these guys, because they're going to tell the story in the ring. And I think it was reported too that like Drew and Bobby Lashley really wanted to work together and have a program with one one another. And
they're already done. They're already done. There was no follow-up there.
And and the fact, it's just. This is more of Drew's journey than it is Dolph's journey. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. And I think this is a good place to put Dolph in at this moment in time. As far as furthering him as a top talent, I'd like to see that happen. WWE's done a lot of damage to Dolph, I feel, in the long grand scheme of things. Not to his own detriment, because he's super duper talented and able to do stuff. But it's just that, where Dolph's at right now, it's going to be a good spot to see him with Drew. So,
all right, this question coming in from a faithful fan of the show, Laura The Rock, saying, do you see Taz interfering in the championship match coming up, part of the Fyter Fest shows with Dynamite, in which Jon Moxley would defend the AEW Heavyweight Championship against Brian Cage?
No, I don't see him interfering, because AEW's pretty darn good. They do have like some, like a little bit of like dabbling into like a ringside kind of, I guess, interference, for lack of a better word. But they do try to keep the action a lot of the times with the two competitors. And, maybe I don't think he's going to have an entry. Let me put it this way. He might interfere, but he won't interfere to the level where he'll have it'll decide the outcome of the match. How's that? Mm-hmm. That's my thought.
More questions kind of coming in here. I'm kind of trying to keep up with them here. People want to say, didn't the Undertaker sign a big contract? Yes, he did. A few months ago, he signed a significant contract with WWE. And that was more tied to, obviously, it was like a long, multi-year contract. People were like, there's no way he's going to actually wrestle that long. I think it's more of a licensing agreement for his name and likeness and merchandise and different things like that. So don't worry about that. It doesn't mean you're going to see him wrestle into his 70s, guys. That's okay. Here we go. Tawab Ahmed, big fan of the show. Thank you so much, Tawab, for your continued support. Says AEW wanted to do Blood and Guts because of WWE's comment. WWE should name a pay-per-view Sunshine and Rainbows. That would be funny. Of course, we've seen this. AEW's done some things marketing-wise that are certainly could be described as playfully spiteful. And their fan base seems to really love going on the internet and having a meme, right? They're a meme crowd. Gotta love the Zoomers. They want their memes. And so, what do you think of this? If you were WWE, what would be your kind of, if you're WWE, because you follow both, and I know you're definitely on our side of coverage for AEW, and that's why I asked you these questions. And if you're WWE, what is your name for if you do an NXT takeover and it has like a subtitle on it? They did NXT takeover. What do you do? What would they do that would be like the dig at them? Would it be something? I would do something off TNT. I would do something absolutely. It would be NXT takeover explosion. It would be an absolute play on it. They would do it like in an amphitheater somewhere. Like I would do that stuff.
You could do the alternative show. It's called the alternative show. There you go.
Yeah, I would do stuff like that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Other people texting in. Yeah, people saying I need a new router. Yeah, we're working on back.
Is that you or me though? Like, because we were. It's probably
me. It's probably me. Don't worry about it. We're still rolling here, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Where am I looking for here? All right, big fan of the show. Always with us every single episode. Maybe the number one fan. I'm not saying it. Other people have said it. I'm not saying it. Other people have said it. James Espanto Tagoal. James Espanto Fernando Tagoal texting in and saying certain wrestling characters can thrive in the pandemic era, like Edge, Orton, Jericho, but Matt Hardy is not one of them. Oh, wow. He needs the crowd to bring his characters to life. Fair observation. I agree with that. There's certainly some wrestlers that I think have been exceptional, and we're already great. Yeah. We're getting crowd reactions.
Look at like Bailey. Yeah.
Bailey is a perfect. You said it right, but you said literally. Bailey is somebody I thought was kind of cooling off there once we lost crowds, but is just blown up. Asuka is the same thing. Where this is a wrestler who speaks English, but obviously everyone knows English isn't her first language. That's a challenge, right? When you're wrestling, you're mainly in front of American audiences and English-speaking audiences. She has been just great. Just a fireball to watch every single week, and has so much charisma, just drips off the screen, and so I've really enjoyed that. On AEW, you have guys that you were always getting crowd reactions, mind you. They're doing it with although they have a crowd, but it's cultivated. You know what I mean? Yes. They're all plants, guys. I don't think that's a wrong thing to say. That's all right. And it adds to the show.
All the fans right now are plants in either promotion you watch.
Yeah, whatever fans you're seeing in the show, it's training. Yes. It's okay. And so I think with it, you see some people do some different things. I want to see younger talent do that, though. I've been seeing, those kind of people that are purely on the rise. Like Asuka has a spot. She has her spot. She's earned it, whether or not she has a title. Jericho, Bailey to a degree had it. She was a champion. It was just cooling off a little bit and kind of heated up again. I would like to see what's going on. Like Otis is an example where that's a guy where people were getting into him at shows and they were getting really big reactions, and he was really starting to. And you think, losing those crowd reactions would really cool off his build. But he still had a match on the undercard that people were still into, and he's had some of the more better comedic moments for WWE in the last few months. So I would say he's probably an exception to that. Is there somebody on AEW that you've seen kind of rise in the no fans era?
That's a good question. I just only from this perspective is people got opportunity because of it. So like you saw these I don't like calling them enhancement talent. I think that's too stupid to say. I don't like that word. I much prefer to call them jobbers just because it sounds cool. But I think a lot of these guys, these younger talents that we never heard of before come in, they've made the most of their opportunities because they have their own unique look or persona or idea. And I think that's them getting this opportunity because of being in this pandemic and empty arena has highlighted them in a lot of ways. As far as somebody that's really stood out since the pandemic has started, I don't know if this is just coincidental or whatever, but Kip Sapien kind of has given that little bit to me. I feel like he's been more fleshed out as a person and a character in regards to how he handles himself. It could just be the coincidence, the timing lining up that he's gotten these opportunities since then. But he's somebody that's has stood out to me on AEW a little bit more since this whole thing has started.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Daryl Pronger texting in with another kind of like AEW to WWE. So now we're getting back into it. We're getting back into the people bitching about AEW and WWE. Now, I know the sad things. Speaking out is still going to be an issue we're going to focus on our show, as long as we should focus on it, and we will continue to focus on it. Even when you think, I think that's a done thing, we will continue to do it because I think it's the right thing to do. All right. And so, but we will still talk about wrestling because we still want to be a fun show as well. So I do like this. We're getting back into the fun, just nerdy, toss it back and forth on Wednesday night bits. Okay. Let's get back to the pettiness. It's fun, right?
I'll scratch my neck beard right now. I'll scratch my neck beard.
I have a subscription at Meltzer. I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Okay, so so Daryl says, if AEW wants to be successful, I would try to make my company. Oh, he's already gone into the fantasy booking mode. My company as different as possible. How could you make it as different as possible? Well, I think that's really, really hard to do right now. I think I don't think right now you need to make it any more different than it already is. But that is there is something bad about that, because then you kind of take your finger off the pulse of the fans then, because AEW is so driven by that. I think there's times when they clearly are listening to their audience and seeing what their audience reacts to, because now you really have to pay attention to social media. That's your real current. That is your real pulse of the audience, right? With AEW, I don't know if they need to make it too different right now, because we're in this weird mode where I just think they need to remind you that it's wrestling, that there's crowd reactions, that's a show, the fundamentals of it that you can recreate as much as possible in terms of produce a show, and how safe you can make the show. People are I was told people I cover wrestling outside of, they're like, how are they even doing that? Didn't they have a coronavirus case? And
I know, I get that all the time.
I get it all the time. And I have a lot of people asking me, how does AEW not have a case? We don't know if they've had a case. We just don't know. With WWE, we knew. And so there's that. Like, I think through all of that, in terms of the structure, AEW should just focus on putting on good wrestling shows. I think trying to be as different as you can, you get into this situation. To me, it's the one thing that I am always there is like, this is just contrarian. You're doing this just to be different, and it doesn't build. There's some things I think they've done that are different, like the TNT title is a different thing. We're going to have a champion on TV every week, and WWE's done that, and it's been really successful. I think the best stuff that John Cena's done the past years is, I'm going to come out with the United States Championship. It's going to be an open challenge, and Cody's kind of doing the same thing. I'm not saying they're copying each other. It's been done thing. I think doing fun things we've seen before, and at a time when we're so collectively stressed, giving us the good junk food is fine, man. That's me, and that isn't being regressive. AEW has enough things that are different. They have different looking wrestlers. They have a different appeal in terms of the way they present the show. I understand. Save the blood and gut show. We can do the blood and gut show down the line. You can do some of that stuff. I say focus on the fundamentals, because sometimes I think they get too distracted in the presentation. I do think sometimes the audience they have around the ring is really trying to get themselves over than just focus on the ring. That's one thing when I watch NXT with the hockey boards. I feel the crowd, the guys they have there. With AEW, I do feel sometimes like it's distracting. Like, I'm wearing my T-shirt, I'm in the front row. Like that. Like that's a little that can be pestering and annoying to me. But it's a petty thing to bring up. It's all about presentation. You have the talent. I mean, both rosters have great talent. I don't know how much you need to play with that.
No, and like, yeah, the action of being different just to be different is, I don't think, beneficial to do. Yeah, I think they are different enough in regard. Obviously, both brands, both promotions can work on bettering what their product is. Like, there's always room for improvement. But to be like, all right, let's just completely do this differently as an extreme, just so we stand out away from WWE. That's not a good mindset to have. And another good mindset to keep in mind, I just finished reading the Terry Funk biography, and he mentioned how the internet is a valuable tool for promotions and a valuable tool, but you cannot live and die by what the fans say either. And I think that's very imperative,
because that's the only way they have. Yeah, it's the only way you have
can't be so reactionary too. Take feedback from it, and don't like completely dismiss it, obviously, but don't always react to everything that gets said, because you're going to find yourself just adhering to the waves instead of riding through them. So it's that's something always to keep in mind too when this comes together. Is like, okay, you want to be different, that's good, but just kind of stick to what you've defined yourself and identified yourself as right now. And right now, you don't want to stir up the ship too much, because we're all in the unknown. Have you ever heard that phrase before, Kev? Living in the unknown or uncertain
we're all
times.
In the unknown. We're all. Dude, this is uncertain. How tired are you of hearing "in these uncertain times"?
In these uncertain times. That's how these
uncertain times. Insert Fortune 500 company advertising product.
Right.
Here.
That's immediately. I'm not going to buy your product. Whatever you're trying to sell me here, you got me out.
I understood the initial reason why people were doing it.
I got it. I was like, oh, that's kind of heartwarming. But now it's like, F you guys. I know what
you don't blame it on anybody. Just give me a commercial. Somebody's wearing a mask. Hey, we're safe. Come on down. Like, I understand that. So that's me. That's you and I working in the media business, being like, oh, sales team bought this. like, oh, okay, all right.
Come on.
I get it.
You're a couple months behind at this point.
People asking a question about the Undertaker. I'm trying to find that one here as well. Different comments here. Want to get into this one. Oh man, you guys are flying by me real fast. I want to be on top of this. People asking about Charlotte. Charlotte is on the shelf. Michael Covington texting about this one. They did the angle where she was injured by Nia Jax before match, had the match with Asuka, tapped out to Asuka, unheard of, right? We've seen Charlotte get beat, but to tap out, the sacred cow of WWE, to tap out to Charlotte here, and then be attacked later on and have her shoulder smashed by Nia Jax. We've learned in the last 24 hours, and I haven't touched on this in the show, we kind of saw something coming a week or two ago, but we couldn't validate it, and that's why we didn't report it. Today, it's validated by Meltzer, though, that it seems like she's going to be on the shelf for a significant period of time, taking an elective surgery. We don't know what that surgery is. Wrestlers get banged up, and they work with injuries. And she worked very, very healthy last night and got her shoulder smashed in a door. It looks pretty brutal. What do you think of Charlotte going on the shelf here? Because she had a lot of, in the eyes of many, many fans, a lot of overexposure on television the past few months.
It's good for her, I think, in the grand scheme of things. I mean, obviously, you don't want to see somebody be hurt and not be able to work, but the fans had that reaction. I understood that reaction, but I also understand the fact that Charlotte's one of the, if not the best to do it in the game right now. So it's like, get her off television. Absence always makes the heart grow fonder. There's nothing wrong with it. She's leaving the territory for a bit, so there you go. It should be good. It's good for her.
Yeah.
Asuka.
It's a good opportunity for other people. It's a good opportunity for other people to come up the ladder.
And to build competition against her when she comes back. So,
and they need it. I do think they WWE had the chance. The situation with Becky Lynch leaving was huge. Okay, do not underrate that. Charlotte being called up in that situation to have the NXT title and be on 3 different shows, that was to give NXT a little bit of rub and say, hey, I'm going to be over here on NXT for a little bit. And I think some people say it's not effective. Some people say it is. And with Charlotte, I do think there was a bit of overexposure, even though she was having the best matches on TV. Yes. So no one was denying that she's not having great matches, but there was, I just don't like her. I just don't like her. There is that younger wrestling audience where they pick their favorites and all they want to do is see their favorites win. And that's fine. That's like you being at a show, right? You're supposed to care that way. But they still want to wear their smart hat and say, well, I know how they should book, but it's my favorite. But then they should, they want to defend it. So it's like, all right, okay. here's time for your favorites to step up, and let's see if they can do it. A lot of people want to see other people who aren't even on television been featured recently get that opportunity. So we'll see what happens here. We will return tomorrow night after AEW Dynamite and NXT. We'll be live after that show right around 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern. So if you follow us on Facebook, that's the first place you see our live streams, and you can interact with us live. We also post a show up on YouTube, but you can listen to us anytime on your phones. Okay, you don't just have to have your phone and like be watching us like this. You can listen to it on your headphones with the podcast. Okay, go and subscribe to the podcast. We just put up exclusive interviews with Lisa Marie Varon, formerly known as Victoria in WWE, Aiden English, Stu Bennett, you may know him as Wade Barrett, the Bad News Barrett. So we just put that up. Go check it out.
Myron Reed too. I interviewed Myron Reed from MLW.
Myron Reed. So tell me about this Myron Reed interview.
Yeah, so we talked a lot. It's been 7 months since he won the MLW Middleweight Championship. And if you never see Myron Reed wrestle, he caught a little bit of waves here with GCW here, the GCW show. He took on a talent. And really, their match, from what I heard, really, really stood out. But he covers how his wrestling style is, what he wants to do to further his wrestling style and further develop his wrestling style and his identity too. He's in one of the greatest factions right now in wrestling called Injustice, just a young, hot faction that's very rebellious. And they're going to be on the rise too as people get to watch more of MLW. But we talk about that. We talk about the Black Lives Matter movement. There's my cat. We talk about video games.
You bring up the Injustice faction. Their idea was based off these social justice concepts, right?
Yes.
And then we kind of play that into wrestling. And immediately, when I saw this going on, I was like, wow, if they were still producing weekly TV shows, what would that be like? What would they do? They were immediately one of the. I was like, that would have been really testy if you would have said you're exploiting this thing, but that would have been a really. Did you guys get into? You guys got into that in the interview, correct?
We talk about that. We talk about definitely too. And what they did is they've made a T-shirt that just says "Injustice" #Injustice across it. All the proceeds go to the NAACP. So it's they're making the most of it. And what they do, they were like their justice was it was understandable because sometimes the refs and officials would treat them unfairly, but there'd be other times when they would go over the top, like in their reactions to it, like they would attack the refs or like they would cheat.
They're also trying to be blue state babyface, red state heel. You're gonna,
but now they've got it. The way it's going is they've been attacked by Contra unit. Contra invaded all of MLW, so now what's going to happen? Injustice is redefining themselves and kind of setting a new era for themselves. They got a new member in Saeed Al Sabah. A lot of cool stuff happening that people will be very intrigued to see. That's very relevant to the times and very poignant for a lot of wrestling fans, like in regards to societal aspects. So, it's a great interview. Fun young kid to kind of look forward to it.
If you're with us every day doing the daily episodes, by the way, we're working on doing maybe a different name for WrestleZone Daily because we want the shows to stand out and be individualistic. So there may be a different name. It'll be the same show. You'll get the same things. We'll just add some other things.
Do you have any ideas going through the old dude's head there?
We've talked about it, and for the people that are diehard fans of the show, I want that name to be something that you love. The guys who it's like a sports talk show. You hear those good regular callers in your local sports talk station. That's what WrestleZone's trying to be, but to a whole wide spectrum of fans too. So we're trying to think about that. I will say this: subscribe to the podcast if you don't already, especially now that we're on Spotify. We're on these new platforms, different things like that you may be on. If you have friends, tell them about the show. Tell them about the show. Tag them in the comments, and you could do that very, very easily. So you don't have to share it on your feed. I don't want to see another wrestling thing from that person again. Just tag those people would want to see it anyway. So thank you for doing that. We'll be back with you tomorrow night after the Wednesday night wrestling shows. We'll be here on Thursday as well. We have those interviews with Myron Reed that we just talked about. They're in the podcast feed now, only audio. Okay, so these interviews we talk about only get the audio. So go get them now. Some of those may pop up video, but right now, only audio. Go get them right now in the WrestleZone Radio podcast feed. All right, guys, we will see you tomorrow night after Dynamite and NXT. And enjoy wrestling.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, it's important. It's important right now.
It is. It's key.